So 30,000 acres of grapes were established here beginning in the late 1800s. When first it was used to ship fresh Concord grapes as far away as Minneapolis.
Right.
Then when California started shipping seedless grapes, of course the Concord seeded grapes weren't quite so interesting.
Sure.
So then it became a jam and jelly place. This is why some of us grew up on Concord grape jelly.
I see. So
and that started in the early 1900s.
And was that Welch's wasn't here then?
Yes, Welch's. Oh yeah. Okay. Welch's was established here in about 1880.
Oh, so Welch's started here?
Oh yes, its headquarters were in Welch.
I thought it was just like the processing.
Nope. So it has a processing facility here and one in Northeast, but the headquarters, the big headquarters, was here until 1979, I think.
Oh wow.
When some general manager said, my wife doesn't really like it here. We're going to move headquarters.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay? That's what happened? And it affected the whole... Now,
so all of those general managers and marketing people and stuff like that then moved to Concord, Mass, where they now have their headquarters.
It's in Concord, Mass. Yeah. But it has no connection. Does that have a connection to...
Concord was found there 150 years ago.
Fred's grandpa or father lived here?
Fred's grandfather bought the place.
And as you said, he bought it from the land surveyor?
And it bought it from, actually, the land surveyor, his family had lived in it, he never had. And his niece lived in it till she died in 1890. Wow. Then she died without issue, without a will, and so it was in, limbo land for a while, I gather. And then Fred's grandfather bought it. And Fred's grandfather had 2 children, and his son and daughter grew up here. I want to grow grapes that I can...
And again, this was his grandpa.
This is the father.
Or this is his father.
The founder. Yeah,
okay.
Got it?
Yeah, thank you.
So the founder said, okay, we can grow French hybrid grapes here that make great wine.
Okay.
And so that makes him the pioneer in this region to say, hey, no, this is a cold climate grape country.
Oh, so he was the first one?
He was the first one. And that's why this is the oldest farm-based winery in New York State. When Fred's father died in 1998, he had about 110 acres of vineyards, and that's about how many we have now.
Wow.
We've added some and taken out some. But
this is amazing up here, though.
It's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah. The section story is Fred's father dies in 98.
Okay.
We start taking over some of the bill paying and stuff, but his mother's still alive. She dies in 2001, two and a half years later. So when that happens, all 3 kids own, Fred and his 2 siblings own the property. But nobody lives here.
Oh, this is beautiful. Oh my God. Really?
So,
did you guys, is this natural? Did you guys make this?
So the story of the pond is that came in 1960. He says, that's a wet apple orchard. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to put a pond.
Oh, I've got a beautiful shot here.
In Fred's father's day, he would, anytime he could convince his wife to come and cook supper of some kind to bring up to the pond, he'd grill steaks or whatever. And they moved here in 1961, and he was here until he died in 1998. Although in the 60s and 70s, he continued an agricultural consulting practice that took him all over the globe. Australia, Africa, South America. Grandfather dies in 61.
Okay.
Fred's father comes back, founds the winery, runs the winery, sells wine all over New York State, as far east as Albany, until he dies in 98.
People don't realize, and people don't think about it.
No.
They just think that, this just happened one day. This is 3-4 generations in now.
Yeah. Second generation takes it till 98.
Right.
98, he dies. The 3 children, Fred, his sister Elizabeth, and Tony inherited, and basically run it long distance for 12 years.
Oh,
because we're in Cincinnati and the country of Panama. So the 3 siblings owned it long distance, and then we realized when we went to Panama, we've got to put somebody a little bit more in charge. And Fred's brother Tony could drive from Ithaca, so he'd come here every 6 weeks and kind of check on things.
So now at
we
that point,
remotely.
That's interesting that you guys would do that. So you had a full trusted crew that had been here for a while, and it was.
Well, what happened was the winemaker had hired an assistant,
Right.
and what we realized was that the assistant winemaker, who's our current winemaker now, so he's been here since 2002.
Wow.
That he was well trained, that he was smart, and he had a great palate, and so it's been a perfect match. So when we talk about grapes, we say 3 kinds. Okay, the American kind, Concord and Ives.
Okay.
What you and I are accustomed to do, peanut butter sandwiches.
And that's also, so Ives are very similar to the Concord?
Very similar, first cousins. Tastes just like them, kind of. So here's our winemaker, Jeff, tractor.
Oh, I met Jeff, actually.
Hello. Hey, Jeff, how many more rows of Ives? Enough for a ride?
Oh, he'll be out there for another couple hours.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, sweet. Thank you.
Yep.
Because of 30,000 acres, we're very fortunate, unlike the Finger Lakes, to have the infrastructure that supports vineyard growth, vineyard management. The picker was developed in Chautauqua County in the 60s.
Oh, you're kidding?
No. So some guy came up with the idea. Now, I don't know that Cornell's claimed it or somebody else, but I don't know the detailed history.
Cornell
anyway,
claims everything.
yeah. So the origination of it was here. And so it permits the grapes to be picked when the winemaker says they're ready, and without 100 people in the vineyards picking over the course of 8 hours.
Now, this used to take how many people?
Oh my God, you'd have 100 people out here.
And this one machine and 2 people that's amazing.
We'll do it in
And
the
it's
morning.
efficient, just heck, I'm sure.
And what's happened is the machines, which cost nearly $500,000 these days, have evolved so that they can monitor and change the speed of the machine itself, how hard the arms are swaying the grapes, based on how old the grapes are, how easily the grapes fall off the vines, how ripe they are, which also is a determinant in that.
This machine does all of this?
Well, what I'm saying is you
combination
can calibrate the machine so you're taking into account those elements.
Right. What's that?
So I give you a basket, a wooden basket, not these baskets, and a pair of scissors, and we take a walk, and we do kind of what we've been doing in the car, only on foot. We taste the grape, and then you say, oh, I like this, and you clip 2 or 3,
so good.
and you fill up a basket like that.
I got it. Wow.
I'll give you a picture of it. So we're going to follow Victor, and we're going to jump on.
Now, so all these...
How long have you worked here? 18, 20?
No, 11 years.
11 years?
Yeah.
No más. Son padre?
20.
20.
Wow. Okay. There you go.
Part of it is also the yield in the field. So from a farm management perspective, he wants to know each year what happened.
So
he'll measure everything that's taken off in this particular harvest of Ives.
Okay.
And at the end, he'll total up all of the different tractor loads, and then he'll have the total for the year.
Okay.
So he's going to be doing this in a second.
Wow. Okay. And then, so this whole... So it's on this...
This is a scale.
this because it's so much. I mean, we can go back because we talked a bit about Fred's grandpa and Fred's dad. So a brief history of where you guys are currently. So when did this officially start, like bottling, distributing? Was that you or was
No.
that your dad?
That was Father in 1961.
Okay, so this did start in '60. So this whole, like, it wasn't just you were selling the grapes. This was actual bottled.
Right.
Yes.
And now is this like a local, like we were Buffalo-ish?
No, so the way it's well, going back a little farther, the way the winemaking tradition started was on the first day of Prohibition. My grandfather started working on making wine.
Right.
And so he made wine in the basement from 1920 something.
And so it was, they were slapping a label on it essentially? Or
Well, no,
he
they
was...
would.
No, sell it bulk.
So he would sell it
okay.
in
So it was
tanker.
completely. So it was like when I went and I first moved to Sonoma, like a dum-dum, because I don't know the business. I didn't know any of this. I thought like I thought there was some rule that said if you grow the wine, you can make the wine, and that's it. I didn't realize there was this whole network of, so there's this big tanks when you come into Sonoma,
Sure.
and then there's this whole business of, it's a big agribusiness of just basically taking the grape and taking the
Sure.
juice and then distributing it out or slapping labels on it. There's a whole ecosystem of this that I didn't know about until I moved there. So this
Sure.
is really what was happening back then for your grandfather.
So my grandfather had 20, 30 acres of grapevines, and those grapes he sold fresh, he sold to the local juice plants, and he made his own wine out of them. My father then removed all my grandfather's apple and cherry trees and remaining peach trees and was the first guy to plant wine-specific grapes out here. And he planted the grapes that he thought the big wineries in the Finger Lakes would want. So 90% of his wine production when he started was wine made here from the grapes grown here, but sent down to the Finger Lakes in tankers.
Okay.
And then he started that same year his own brand, Johnson Estate Wineries. And our bottle, that label, that brand has just grown very slowly in the intervening 50 odd years.
Yeah.
But Fred's father was distributing bottled wine as far east as Albany
Wow.
in the 70s.
And so this goes back to what Bill was doing, Bill Merritt.
Right.
And we talked about, because I think that your dad and Bill, because we talked about the legislation that they got passed. When, like,
76, right?
Yes, thereabouts,
The
73.
Farm Bill Act.
yeah, what a
Yeah.
huge deal, though. Like I was telling, I think, because Bill was very humble,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, that's awesome, that's amazing. And I was kind of relating it to, like, I come from the music industry and the publishing industry. And for him and your dad to change that law was a big deal, because everything that, people don't probably even realize, people that are starting up little wineries now, like, if it wasn't for that, it may have happened at one point, but to get it that early and to have that prescient mindset of like, look, this has got to change. We got to change this. This is our future. We're building this business, and it can't happen without this. That was a big deal. And
Right.
your dad did the same thing because, like, Bill was telling me, he got in his car and went down the road, and he was just hustling.
Yeah.
Like any entrepreneur does.
Sure.
You just make it happen. And there's no market here, so you got to make your market.
I ran into a guy at breakfast today who had sold my father his second diesel VW pickup truck.
Oh, that's amazing.
Did you
These
really?
he used to run around in these little VW pickup trucks.
Selling his wine.
We're doing everything.
But I love that idea because that's what, that's why I moved to the Bay in California. It really had more to do with that entrepreneurial spirit that's there. And it's just full, it's like it's a little beehive of people that do that. You just make it happen. And that was your dad, and that was Bill, and these guys set the whole tone for all of this.
Sure.
But your father's establishing this winery in 1961 was before the Farm Winery Act.
Yes. So
Yeah, it was like, 15 years before.
Right, so he went through all, but there was a winery down on the Hudson who really was the lead winery in the Farm Winery Act.
So,
We were the leaders out here in this region.
so I didn't know that.
But
Was it Brotherhood? No.
no,
It's the other one.
it's the other one. It's changed hands a couple of times since. Small winery, but
So it was a participatory
Sure.
thing with everybody, really. This really took a group effort to get this passed.
But it's that winery on the Hudson that actually has Farm Winery license number 1.
And we're Farm Winery license number 2, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Wow. And So what, I mean, your dad had all this knowledge, your grandpa had all, I mean, this was just like I was telling Chris this from 21 Bricks the other day. I think that like you become, because his dad's like just a great farmer, right? And I think it's like me in the restaurant business. My parents started that business because they had the initiative and they had the will, but I was raised in that business.
Right.
And I think you get hardwired differently. And like, so you're hardwired differently than, you know, like successively from your grandpa to your dad to you. Like this is just like you get this in a way maybe, right?
Well, it's I don't know what you generate reflexes when you do something. I'll give you another example. These folks who used to migrate up from Mexico, who all got displaced from their little hill farms when NAFTA came through.
Okay.
Plants talk to them. You know, they listen. They're plant whisperers, if you like. And they can translate that from their little corn patches to grapes.
That's amazing. And I totally get that. Yeah. Because it goes way past what you can see, what you can hear, right? I mean, it's just like this.
You got to see and hear it, but
there's this like second sight to it. Do you know what I mean? There's this intuitive nature of that type of thing that is just a gift, and that they know inherently how to manipulate that and how to work with what they're given. Right?
And they can tell when a plant's happy and when a plant's not. It's like Vince Lombardi used to say about football, you need to be so good at it that your spine takes care of it. You spinalize it. It's reflex. If you got to think about it, it's too late.
Did you ever hear the 10,000 hour? You guys have now expanded this business to, are you like at a critical mass or critical point where the next step is?
Can I back up
sure.
for one step and ask whether you want the quick secession story?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so Fred's father dies in 1998, after having run the business since 1961.
Okay.
Fred's mother dies in 2001, and the three children, Fred, Elizabeth, and Tony, own it jointly, and for 12 years manage it basically long distance, with the winemaker more or less in charge of a lot. Do you want to add to that portion?
Well, that was right. The three of us none of us were living here. And so we had a farm manager, a winery manager, and we just kind of managed it in quotes, long distance. But the wine business at that point was a hot enough item that it continued, somehow we continued to grow. My brother and I bought my sister out, and in 2010, I bought my brother out, and Jennifer and I made the decision to move back here and retire back here from the corporate life.
You did.
Yeah.
And once we sold our home in Cincinnati in 2013, we were able to execute that.
We finished it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did. And see, and that's the other thing with this. This is a long, arced story. It's not like you guys, you guys had full careers. You were doing, full lives. You're living in Cincinnati, and then it's a position of like, hey, we should maybe go and step this up and move back. And but that's a huge undertaking.
We had the good fortune, though, of living in San Antonio for several years, and it's hot in San Antonio, which makes the farm sort of attractive as a place to be. And so in 2000...
0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Right, we were spending some time here in the summer, sometimes 3 weeks or 6 weeks, something like that. But it gave us an opportunity to have a little bit of a transition period in a sense.
You did, because you acclimated to it, right? And then you're just like stepping into this.
She and the kids were here. I knew it.
Right.
But it allowed the kids to become familiar with the grandparents' place and the farm and what have you.
Now, how old were they when you moved here?
Well, so this was always Grandpa and Grandma's
But they were here
house.
like a lot, right? Throughout the course of a year.
So I would say they spent several summers here when they were 14 and 16.
God, so as a kid, that must have been magic.
Yeah. They would spend, how shall I say, time with cousins here a week there when they were younger, but for a whole summer, not until they were teenagers.
Wow.
And they would have jobs over at Chautauqua Institution.
They would.
My son was a sailing instructor. Blaine waited table there for a summer.
Wow. But it's just an awesome life, So now you guys come here. Was there a lot of did you have a vision for what it was going to be as you progressed through this? Like, did you sit down, or has it just grown organically throughout the last?
Let me say what prompted the end of 2000 or 2011 decision to buy out the brother was Fred had an interregnum between jobs, probably the wrong word to use, but anyway. And so he had 6 months to devote to managing the construction of the warehouse building number 3, if you will.
So that was a big.
That was a big part of it.
So we had, I mean, even growing slowly, we had totally run out of room. And we either needed to make the next step function investment.
Sure.
Or we needed to sell the place or do something. And I had that summer free, and so I put my hand up and said, I will manage the building of, the warehouse bottling area,
Right.
that expansion, and involved myself all that summer. It was partly to see how I like this whole business and learn more about it, coming back.
Sure.
And it needed doing.
Right.
And after getting that done, then, we knew enough to say, yeah, buying my brother out makes sense, and making this our retirement makes sense.
Right.
So that was kind of our first toe in the water, is making the decision to make this our retirement.
Because at that point, if this went all right and you could feel it out in that way, because you're laying down another foundational stone with that.
Right.
And laying a seed for the future too, right, at that point. So it's kind of setting you up, really, right at that point.
And it needed doing.
It was just time, right?
Yeah.
So you're at another one of those crossroads.
Yeah.
Right. The other little bit of an element is that we had spent some time here, a couple of months, and I happened to go to a wine trail meeting, and I came back home and said to my husband, we either have to get involved and support this organization, or we need to get out. And that ended up, long story short, as my devoting a lot of time to the wine trail. And I wasn't involved in the winery at all, but ended up being the executive director and the president, not the non-titled executive director and president of the wine trail in 2008, 2009.
Wow.
And by the end of 2009, I was able to say to the board members and to the wineries, you're large enough, you have enough revenues, you need to hire a full-time executive
Yeah, you need
director.
to get somebody that can, because you're spread. That's a lot to take on and to try to navigate at that time too, because you were just in the Seminole, right? It had already been around, but now it's really popular.
So
then it was a matter of
it was growing.
awareness.
So
right?
it went from, it started with 6 wineries in 2002. By the end of 2009, it was 13 wineries.
Wow.
And there were little
quickly
things.
quickly grew. Right, actually, it may have been more than, maybe it was 13 when into the beginning of 2008.
Yeah, I don't know.
May have been 18 or so by the end of 2009. Anyway.
Well, the
enough.
industry down here too. I love, like, on a weekend when I'm done shooting and I'm driving home and I see everybody's just busy.
Yeah.
I just love that. I love that this has become a thing, and it's, when I grew up in Buffalo, I don't know. This was always here, of course, but the awareness of what's happening here is growing now. And
I would say we're in Buffalo's backyard, but it's a secret.
And that's
in
why
some
we chose to do this. I mean, I fell in love with Westfield. The slow unraveling of this region for me it's been magic. It's been a beautiful journey of
That's great.
finding Westfield and then discovering Findlay Lake and discovering the wineries here, and then meeting Fred and meeting Bill and Chris and like all of these people that are really like doing so much good work down here. And the geography alone, if you didn't even have anything else here, it's gorgeous. And then you have this accentuated business, because there's nothing like this type of business in this type of geography. It's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, it's
right?
pretty. Yeah.
It is. So
So the warehouse was constructed in 2010. So
That's right.
that was a big growth element in the business in some ways.
And so now that allows you still have a growth. There's still more growth to do. Like you're comfortable.
I thought the warehouse was big enough to run me for the rest of my career here, and we're out of room.
Oh no! So
We're renting warehouse space offsite now, right?
Yeah, but that's a good
So we've
problem to have.
added new tanks. A new little element is selling stainless steel tanks made in Bulgaria, because we ordered so many that they realized that maybe we could sell them. So Fred and Chris Kane,
Our distributor.
Fred and our winemaker Jeff Murphy and Chris Kane are
Yeah, Chris told me about
cohorts.
we showed those on the side in the back of they were smashing the grapes and doing the tumbler, and we walked over and he was doing the sales pitch for the
Bulgarian
tanks. Yeah. It's kind of funny. This is such a legacy business and so important to the region. This isn't even about, at this point, like you said, you're on top of stewarding the house and stewarding the farm, you're stewarding the legacy of this brand.
No, that's
You
for
know?
sure.
And but you were just on the cusp. One of the things that has been a great satisfaction is it not only bringing this brand and this property, up year by year, but seeing the wine part of this grape belt become a real engine of economic growth for northern Chautauqua County.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's become a real positive contributor, a real example. And, quite frankly, that's part what we're doing here today is trying to leverage that into more prosperity, more visitors, more restaurants.
Sure.
Better stewardship of the forests and the rest of the fields.
Well, and that's what I love about wine farming. Is that the proper term?
Sure.
But it's because, and I used to really talk to people in Sonoma and Napa about this. You're not just like depleting. This is about, because it's a vine and it's there. It's not getting chopped every year and then replanted. This is a
100-year-old vineyards.
Yeah, it's a nurturing of the land, and there's like a different relationship that you have as a wine grape farmer, right? It's just
In some respects, yes.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're absolutely right. Your nurturing word was right. It said another way, one of my least favorite words is sustainability.
Right.
Least favorite. And why? Because it's inherently defensive. It implies a holding action. No, our job is to make the soil a little better every year, the vines a little better every year, the forest a little better every year, the wine a little better every year.
Sure.
You need to be moving forward, and so I would, always substitute continuous improvement,
Or the word
renovation,
sustainability.
restoration, any of those words
Right.
for sustainability.
And that's actually a much better term. Sustainability does, the connotation is that restate
continuing,
here.
yeah.
And this is about growth and
Improvement.
feeding the land so it continually improves.
Well, I mean, you can call us environmentalists if you like, but that's kind of not the way we think about it.
Sure.
We just think about it in terms of making things better every year.
I love it. Yeah, and that's true. And that's what